Why deflation? It will not happen in the States. All right, so I'm reading my book from James Grant, The Forgotten Depression, the 1921, The Crash That Cured Itself. And I came across this interesting tidbit I figured I'd share with you. This is chapter, I'm not sure what chapter it is, but a debacle without parallel from page 101. I'm just going to read this a little bit to you, and then we'll go into it. And you can see my man right here, little snuggle bunny, literally a lap dog. All right. Before a joint convention of the National Hardware Association and the American Hardware Manufacturers Association on October 20th, 1920, a director of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York painted an upbeat picture of the deflationary future. As farmers and manufacturers had the inflationary pins kicked out from under them, observed the speaker, Robert Trayman, so would retailers and wage earners, because what happened was there's a huge inflation because of World War I, which led to a huge deflation at the end of World War I. And so he was saying manufacturers and farmers had the inflationary pins kicked out from under them because they were expecting inflation. Instead, they got deflation, which hurt a lot of people. But retail prices, says Trayman, would be lower come next spring or summer, he said, and thus wages must fall too. And I'm going to quote, so far as the moving of merchandise and liquidating of inventories is concerned, the deflation process has only really just begun, and we must expect that it'll be months or perhaps a few years before it is completed. In this process, we must expect some reduction in the wage scale. So large a part of the cost of articles may be traced to labor that there can be no real or permanent deflation completed until wage deflation takes place. Did you hear that? Basically, he's saying such a large part of the cost of goods sold, selling this t-shirt, the COGS, cost of goods sold, comes from labor, the cost of labor, that until labor takes a reduction in salary, there can be no wage deflation. Labor is without question the biggest expense businesses pay. So there is what's called cost of goods sold. How much does it cost to manufacture a t-shirt, and how much are they going to set for it? So the cost of goods sold is a gross price. I set up a retail price, or a wholesale price, so to speak. I set up a retail price, and that the difference between the two is essentially my profits. A little bit more to that, but not much. Anyway, so at the end of the day, what this guy was saying in 1920 is that until laborers, earners, workers take a pay cut, there won't be deflation spreading throughout the U.S. economy. And I find that interesting, and this is why I say, while there will be no deflation here, because if you fast forward till 2019, cost of goods sold are still the primary, most significant expense that businesses pay, except even more now, because back then there was no FICA, there's no OSHA, no unemployment compensation, all that. So back then it was just straight labor. Now you get healthcare, you get everything that's flown into an employee, which is why corporations are desperate, and governments too. I mean, any employer of any strike are going to want to automate through robotics, or robots specifically, certainly through technology. I mean, just look at all the different ways technology can reduce redundancy or eliminate it outright, which would cost you your job. So that will happen. I don't think robots are coming quite as quickly as some will say, but they're coming, man, absolutely, and they're going to displace many people. For sure, which is a good thing, because what will happen then is we're going to advance the economy, advance society, as more and more people have more and more disposable income to spend. The people who get displaced, yes, that sucks. There will be people who get displaced. I might be one of them. Hell, we'll get into it here in a second. But no different than a horse and buggy manufacturers, some people are displaced. They're going to have to find other ways to work. And I would say start your own business, for sure. Be a 1099 employee, a consultant, a contractual employee, as opposed to a W-2. Use your skill set that you have and make even more money. But be honest with me, there will be people displaced. But there's only one way, other than a mass amount of robotics that are coming to the future quickly, we'll have deflation. And what do you think that one way would be? And when I tell you, you'll be like, that's obvious. Was there a growth in the construction trades? or was there was a growth in the cost of a construction labor, or was there a decrease in the cost of construction labor over the last 30 years? There's decrease. Why? Because of unskilled immigration. 40 years ago, there was construction trades that were done by native-born Americans. That's all there is to it, and they got paid a decent wage for it. But they can only, landscapers, the whole thing, but they can only keep those wages decent while they're not having to compete for unskilled, low-cost labor. That's a fact. And so when we had this swarm of unskilled, low-cost labor coming in, doing a good job, I'm not lying to you, but let's not pretend that these people did not depress wages. They certainly did. If you could hire a guy from Guatemala who's going to work his freaking tail off for freaking $10 a day, as opposed to your own guy for $10 an hour, you're going to take the guy from Guatemala, so long as the end product is just as good. And that's what happened. I mean, so the idea that deflation isn't. The idea that deflation wasn't caused by unskilled mass amount of immigration is inherently silly. If deflation in wages could come from robots, it certainly can come from people working for a lesser wage scale. It's just, come on, man, this is nuts. And yet the titans of America knew all this. That's why they want more and more immigration, because it gets to reduce their cost of goods sold, because the number one expensive cost of goods sold is labor. This is not debatable. And so you see there, and on top of that, you throw in the virtue signaling that we're going to help everybody in the world by, this unlimited immigration to America, where we're going to give them health care. I mean, this is nuts. It's not. Everybody knows it's nuts. Just people are afraid to say it because they want to be for diversity and inclusion. Hell, man. Who do you think is the biggest affected by this unskilled immigration? I'm telling you, I'll let you figure that out. It's certainly not the rich Nancy Pelosi types or George or Mitt Romney types. It's not. It's the working people of all skin colors, that's for sure. So you get this mass amount of immigration. It deflates depresses the wages of unskilled native-born American workers. That's bad. Is there any wonder why opiate and other things are rampant in low-income communities? Well, because they've been displaced. There's no other way around this. And I was just reading just a few minutes ago, some freaking clown said, the people in the cities should bash and should make fun of the people in the rural areas because cities do all the, produce everything. I said, okay, good luck eating there, buddy. But that's what I'm saying, is the arrogance of the elite, the educated elite. And the funny thing is, people say, oh, it's just, you poor white guys that get displaced. No, not at all. It's of all skin colors. In fact, my man Amar was saying he got displaced, even though he's a second generation Indian, not Native American Indian, but Indian. He got displaced by his job being shipped overseas to India. Now, he's come back, and he's done great because he's moved the ball. He said, okay, well, I'm in America. I'm going to take advantage of it, and he has, which is great. But not everybody does that. Not everybody has an intestinal fortitude to do that. And yet, if you're a worker in freaking Biddeford, Maine, putting shingles on roofs, and all of a sudden now you got all these Somalis coming in who are going to do it for a hell of a lot cheaper than you, you're priced out of the market. And yet people are going to laugh at you. You say, oh, you go learn to code? It's crazy. It's freaking nuts. That's how you get deflation right there, is by bringing on either robots or unskilled, low-skilled wages. And if you think it only happens to that roofer in Biddeford, Maine, I think you should think again. I'm telling you right now, the corporate titans of all political stripes want to reduce their costs so they can have more profits. Now, in a truly free market, I'm all about that, 100%, all about it. I 100% in a truly free market, truly capitalistic society. We're not in that, though, my friends. We are in a fascistic society where big government, big labor, and big business collude to the benefit of big government, big business, and big labor. And everybody else is just an afterthought. And so because of that, I don't trust these guys as far as I could kick them. And so when they say we want, a Milton Friedman type immigration, I'm like, yeah, all for it. But even Milton Friedman said we can't have unlimited immigration as long as we have welfare. Can't do it because we're going to draw people who want the cheap welfare and aren't going to do what we need them. Because remember, immigrants come here to benefit us. They don't come here for us to benefit them. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And yet somehow people on the left and the Republican Party as well have fallen for this facade of hook, on, and sinker. If they're immigrants, they're coming here and they're only good. Remember Jeb Bush it was during the 2016. I forgot what he said. He said, basically, he was saying immigrants are more valuable than native-born American. I thought that was disgraceful, frankly. That was disgraceful. Because rightly or wrongly, we have been born in the United States. We haven't. We might not be as prominently successful as Jeb Bush or Elizabeth Warren would want us to be, but being born in the United States makes us full-fledged citizens by luck. I get it, but we have a right to be here. Other people do not, and when they come here, they need to come on our terms. Not we don't just let anyone in here. So that'd be my concern here. Is that if you want to see deflation, you're going to see this is immigration. It's robots, and again, I'm not quite so worried about that in the short run. In the long run, sure. And actually, I don't think that's a bad thing. When you automate stuff, I think that's actually a good thing. It will make more people available to do less grinding work and more stuff that they can use their mind, which will help advance society for sure. But I do worry about the lower end of the spectrum. And when I mean lower end, I don't mean roofers. I mean call center people, software engineers, the whole thing. I mean, all that stuff can be done by anybody. And so because of that, that would be deflationary. And it's just interesting to see how much both political elite parties are pushing that. And they're doing it. The Democrats want the votes, the Republicans want the money. And they're not recognizing it's deflationary. And what happens is you're gonna have a race to the bottom, which is gonna be painful. And we've had that for the last 30 years. We cannot pretend we haven't. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty interesting. The Forgotten Depression by James Grant. Big fan of his writings and a big fan of this book too. I will see you.